All right, so last week we started working on simplifying radicals. And so I had assigned you a homework assignment. Now, all we did is we just started simplifying them. If you notice, for this right here was your homework assignment. It gave you two things to do. Number one, it said to simplify, excuse me. Number one, to simplify, okay, and then number two, state the excluded values. So today we want to talk about what do they mean by excluded values. So what I've done is I've taken just a couple of these that we reviewed on last week on Friday on what they meant, first of all, on simplifying these. So the first part of simplifying these basically is what you should have done for your homework sheet, and that is you were to factor these and then cancel out any like terms. So first of all, what we would do is we would factor out the p squared plus 4p minus 12. And so what I did is said, okay, p plus 6 and p minus 2, because 6 times negative 2 is negative 12, and then 6 minus 2 is 4. So that gives us p squared plus 4p minus 12. Then we didn't have a trinomial here, but we have a binomial that we can factor out the GCF. And so 4 is common between 4 and 24, so I factored out the 4. And then the p squared was the lowest power, so we factored out the p squared. So then we're going to divide both terms by 4p squared. So 4p cubed divided by 4p squared, the 4's cancel. 3 minus 2 is 1, so that's just 1p. And then the p squares cancel here, and 24 divided by 4 is 6. So this is what we wound up with. Our answer after we canceled out the p plus 6 was p minus 2 over 4p squared. But what do we mean when we say here in our directions to state the excluded value? So I told you that today I would explain what that means. So basically, when you have a fraction, you can't have 0 as a denominator. I mean, it's just one of those things that it's what we call an undefined term. So like for instance, if I put into my calculator 4 divided by 0, there it is, and hit enter, you're going to get an error message, and it just basically says there's a mistake here because you're dividing by 0, so that can't happen. So here, the way you find your excluded value is you take your denominator, which is 4p squared, and you set it equal to 0. And then you solve for p. So we're just going to divide both sides by 4, and so now we're going to say p squared equals 0, and then of course you have to take your square root of both sides, and p equals 0. So here my excluded value is going to be p cannot equal 0, because when p does equal 0, that makes my denominator 0, and it would, because 0 squared is 0, and 0 times 4 is 0, so then we would have p minus 2 over 0. So in other words, p can equal anything. It can equal 1, it can equal 100, it can equal 3/4. The only thing it cannot equal is 0. So your answer would be it cannot be 0. Now, if we go down and look at number 9, here with number 9, this is from our classwork on Friday. We had k squared minus 10k plus 21 over k squared minus 10k plus 21. And I said, okay, well here your solution is just going to be 1 because they're exactly alike. But to find the excluded values, we actually have to go ahead and factor it. We're going to have to factor this down. So we know here that both our signs are going to be a negative because our 21's a positive. And then we want factors of 21 that add to 10, which would be 7 and 3. And that's going to be the same for both the top and the bottom. And of course, we know they're still the same, so it's still going to equal 1. But we do have to find our excluded values. And you're just going to do that by taking each factor and k minus 3. and setting them to equal 0. So here we would just add our 7, and we would add our 3. So our excluded values here would be 7 and 3. So in other words, k, not x, cannot equal 7 and 3. So I'm going to work some more of these on your homework assignment in the next video.